The sun was like a burning eye, staring down at the endless desert. Red sand stretched for miles, rolling like waves in a silent ocean. The wind was hot and cruel, carrying dust that stung any skin it touched. In the middle of this barren world, a small figure lay motionless, half buried in the sand. She was young, no older than 12, her body fragile and pale. Her legs did not move, her arms were weak. She could not call for help. And yet, even in her helplessness, there was a spark in her eyes, a spark that the desert could not burn out. Far above, a spaceship glided silently through the red sky. Inside, the alien Baron watched through a thick glass window. He was tall, with sharp features and eyes that glowed like molten metal. He had ruled countless worlds, feared by every living being, but today, even his cruel heart hesitated. "This is where she belongs," he said in a low, cold voice. "Let the desert teach her weakness." The Baron's daughter was not just any child. She carried in her mind a secret, one that even he did not fully understand. She had the potential to change the balance of power in the galaxy. But for now, he saw only a paralyzed girl, weak and small. To him, she was a failure. The spaceship lifted, leaving behind a trail of heat and dust. The girl lay alone. The desert seemed endless, cruel and silent. Sand shifted around her as if it wanted to swallow her whole. Her skin burned under the scorching sun. Every breath felt like fire. Yet she did not cry. She could not. Her body would not let her. But her mind was awake, sharp as the desert wind. She remembered her father's words, his eyes full of disappointment, and something inside her stirred, not fear, not sadness, but a quiet determination. The desert was alive. Strange shapes moved in the distance, creatures that crawled on many legs, their eyes like black stones. Some of them hunted for food, others only for sport. The girl knew she was not safe. She had to survive, even if her body betrayed her. Hours passed. The sun sank lower, painting the sky in blood red and orange. The heat became a burning memory, leaving behind a dry chill. She was exhausted, but she noticed something new. A faint shimmer on the horizon, like a mirage, moved closer. It was not a mirage, it was a man. He was not an alien, not a creature of the desert. He was human, his clothes dusty and torn. His eyes were kind but sharp, always observing. He moved carefully, studying the desert as if he could read its secrets. When he saw the girl, he did not hesitate. He ran toward her, his boots kicking up clouds of red sand. The girl tried to speak, but only a faint whisper escaped her lips. He knelt beside her, gently lifting her head. "You're alive," he said. "Don't worry, I'll help you." The girl's heart beat fast, though her body could not respond. She wanted to trust him, but she had been abandoned by the one person she had loved most. Her father had left her to die, and now, a stranger appeared, carrying hope she barely knew existed. The man studied her carefully. He noticed something unusual, not her weakness, but her mind. Her eyes were clear, bright, and intelligent. She looked at him and thought, "I am more than what he says. I am more than weak." The desert wind howled around them. The man shaded her from the sun, his hands gentle but strong. He did not speak much, but his actions were clear. He would not leave her. And for the first time since she had been abandoned, the girl felt a flicker of trust. Night fell quickly in the desert. The temperature dropped, and the cold bit through her thin clothing. The man gathered some sandstones and old metal pieces to make a small shelter. The girl shivered, her body weak but her mind alert. She watched the stars appear, one by one, in the endless black sky. Stars had always fascinated her. On her father's world, she had seen planets from the high towers, but never like this, close, bright, and infinite. The man noticed her gaze and smiled faintly. "They're beautiful," he said. "You can survive. You just have to believe it." The girl nodded slightly. She could not move her body, but her mind was alive. She remembered every lesson her father had mocked her for. She remembered every word of training, every book she had read in secret. She began to plan how she could survive, how she could grow stronger, how she could show the world and maybe even her father that she was not weak. The desert was silent but not empty. Shadows moved among the dunes, unseen by most. The girl knew danger would come, and soon. Yet for the first time she did not feel fear. She felt determination. She was small, paralyzed, and abandoned, but she was alive, and survival was just the beginning. Somewhere far away the Baron's ship vanished into the sky, but the desert had claimed no victory yet. It had only set the stage, and the girl, silent, watchful, and determined, was ready for the test it would bring. The wind whispered through the dunes, carrying a promise. Not all who are abandoned remain weak. Some awaken in the silence of the desert, and tonight, she would begin to awaken. The desert night was cold, colder than anything the girl had ever felt. The wind cut through her thin clothes like tiny knives. Her body ached, every joint stiff and uncooperative, but her mind refused to rest. She could feel the presence of the desert, its silent power, its hidden dangers. Somewhere out there, shadows moved among the dunes. And then she saw him. A figure appeared on the horizon, moving steadily toward her. At first, she thought it was another hallucination, a trick of the moonlight on the sand. But he kept coming, with careful, deliberate steps. He was human, though unlike anyone she had ever seen. His hair was wild, tangled from the desert wind, and his eyes were sharp, scanning everything. The man carried a long staff, not as a weapon, but as a tool. He tapped it lightly on the ground, testing the sand, listening to the vibrations. Every move he made suggested he had survived this desert before. He was strong, quiet, and aware, and somehow she knew he would notice her, even if she could not call for help. As he drew closer, the girl's pulse quickened. Her body was still, paralyzed, yet her mind raced. Who is he, she wondered. Is he a friend? Or will he be another threat like my father? The man reached her just as a cold wind swept across the dunes, scattering loose sand around her small body. He knelt beside her carefully, examining her face and limbs. He did not speak immediately, but the girl felt his attention, sharp and thorough, almost like the desert itself was guiding him to her. You're alive, he finally said, his voice low and calm. Barely, but alive. She wanted to reply, but her mouth refused. Only a faint, inaudible sound came out. The man smiled faintly, not cruelly, but with curiosity. He looked at her eyes, those bright, intelligent eyes that no one had ever noticed. And then he whispered, almost to himself, "You're different. I can see it." Different. The word echoed in her mind. That was what her father never understood. He had abandoned her because he saw only weakness, only a paralyzed body. But the man, this stranger, saw something else, a flicker of life, a spark of potential. He moved quickly. He built a small shelter from driftwood, broken machinery, and sandstones. His movements were precise, almost like a dance, and he worked silently, letting the girl observe. She noticed every detail, how he shielded her from the wind, how he made a small basin to collect condensation from the cold night air, and how he carefully kept the fire small but warm. As the stars blinked into existence above them, the girl felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. A human, a stranger, had not turned away. He had come, and somehow he had recognized her, even in her weakest state. The man crouched beside her, studying her again. "You're not just weak," he said softly. "There's something inside you, something they didn't see, something they fear." She wanted to ask him, "Who are they? Who fears me?" But she could not speak. Her mind, however, was alive, thinking, analyzing, planning. She studied the man as he worked, trying to understand him. His hands were rough but careful. His eyes were tired but alert. He moved like someone who had faced death many times but survived every challenge. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the sand, something large, fast, and silent. The girl froze, but the man reacted instantly. He lifted his staff, tapping the ground, sending a signal she could not see. The shadow paused, as if aware it had been noticed. Then, with a hiss, it disappeared into the dunes. "You see?" the man said, his voice steady but urgent. "Even the desert watches you. You have to be ready." The girl's heart raced. For the first time, danger felt real, but not hopeless. She was not alone anymore. Someone saw her. Someone believed she could survive. And for the first time, she felt a small flame of determination flicker in her chest. Night deepened, and the wind howled like a predator searching for prey. The man gave her a small warm cloth to rest her face on, and covered her with a light, tattered blanket. "Sleep if you can," he said. "Tomorrow, we start moving. The desert is not forgiving, and we cannot stay here." She could feel his eyes on her as she closed them. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine possibilities, not just survival, but freedom, strength, maybe even revenge. The man did not see her plans yet, but he sensed something powerful, something the Baron had overlooked. The desert night seemed endless. Strange sounds echoed from faraway dunes, whispers of creatures unseen. Yet she was not afraid. Her mind raced faster than ever, understand. In the desert in ways her body could not. She could feel her own strength growing, not in her limbs, but in her mind. And she knew, deep down, that this stranger had seen it too. The first rays of dawn painted the desert in soft gold. The man stood, brushing sand from his clothes, and looked at her. "We move soon," he said. "The desert is a test. It will not be easy. But you can survive it. I know you can." She looked at him, silent but alive. For the first time, she believed him. And somewhere deep inside, she began to understand something important. Survival was not enough. She had to awaken. And the man, this stranger who had found her in the vast, cruel desert, would be the first to witness it. The desert wind carried the sound of distant howls, but tonight, the girl was not afraid. Tonight, the first step of her journey had begun. The morning sun burned brighter than ever, casting sharp shadows across the red dunes. The girl lay under the tattered blanket, her body stiff, but her mind alert. The man had left early, moving with careful precision, testing the sand and listening to the distant hum of the desert. She tried to sit up, but her paralyzed legs betrayed her again. Still, she watched him, learning without a word. The desert was unforgiving. Every step the man took seemed to awaken hidden dangers, sand shifting like living things, strange cries echoing from faraway dunes. Yet he moved with confidence, as if he could read the desert's secrets. The girl realized something. Surviving this place would require more than strength. It would require cunning, patience, and observation. "Today, we move," the man said when he returned, kneeling beside her. "We cannot stay in one place. The desert punishes weakness, but it rewards cleverness. You must learn to see it, feel it, survive it." He lifted her carefully, carrying her in a makeshift sling. Each step was precise, measured against the shifting sand. The girl felt the heat of the sun on her back, the sting of sand in her eyes. Every moment was a test. Every sound, wind, distant creatures, shifting dunes, was a warning. Hours passed and the desert seemed endless. They encountered strange creatures, some with dozens of legs, others like floating shadows in the heat. One tried to strike, its claws flashing in the sun. The man reacted instantly, tapping his staff and sending the creature skittering away. The girl watched, fascinated. Every time danger came, she noticed how the man used the desert itself, shadows, wind, sand, to protect them. Her mind began to work. Even though her body was weak, she could think, plan, and predict. She started noticing patterns, the way shadows moved, the rhythm of the wind, the sounds the creatures made. It was as if the desert spoke to her, teaching her lessons her father never allowed. By midday, exhaustion set in. The heat was relentless, burning her skin and making her eyes water. But then, something strange happened. The girl felt a sudden warmth inside her, not from the sun, but from herself. A small pulse, a flicker of energy. She tried to move her hands and felt a tingle, a spark that was new and unfamiliar. She looked at the man who was arranging a shelter. He noticed her eyes and nodded, as if he had seen the change. "You're learning," he said quietly. "Not with your body, but with your mind. That's how the desert tests you." As the day wore on, they faced worse trials. A sudden sandstorm blew across the dunes, fierce and blinding. Sand whipped against her face, filling her mouth and nose. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The man covered her face, shielding her from the worst of it, but the storm pushed them both to the edge. The girl felt fear, but it was different now. It was sharp, yes, but it did not paralyze her mind. Instead, she thought. She observed how the man moved through the storm, how he used the wind to navigate, how he protected them both. She realized something incredible. The desert could be an enemy, but it could also be a teacher. Night fell, and the storm died down, leaving the desert quiet, almost eerily calm. The man built a small fire from brittle stones and dry shrubs. Its glow was weak, but enough to keep the shadows at bay. The girl rested, exhausted, but she could not sleep. Her mind raced with everything she had learned that day. She remembered every creature, every shadow, every sound. She started to feel a strange confidence growing inside her. Suddenly, she sensed movement near the fire. A pack of small nocturnal creatures crept toward them, drawn by the warmth and light. The man noticed immediately and swung his staff, making the creatures scatter. The girl felt a surge of satisfaction. She had anticipated their approach before he acted. It was small, but it mattered. She had begun to understand the desert's rhythm. The man looked at her with something almost like pride. "You're ready," he said softly. "Not for everything, but for what comes next. The desert has shown you weakness and danger. It has also shown you patterns, survival, and focus. Tomorrow, it will test you again, but differently." The girl felt something stir deep inside her. It was no longer just the spark from earlier. It was a quiet, growing fire. She wanted to move, to rise, to prove that she was more than the paralyzed child left in the heat. She knew she could not fail, not now, not with the desert teaching her and the man guiding her. The wind shifted again, whispering through the dunes like a secret. Somewhere far away, a strange hum began, low, steady, and unfamiliar. The man tensed. "We are not alone," he said. "The desert is not empty, and it never forgets. Something is coming. We must be ready." The girl's pulse quickened. She could not move her legs, but her mind raced faster than ever. Danger was coming, but this time she felt prepared. The essence of the desert, the guidance of the man, and her own growing strength had changed her. She was no longer helpless. And as the night deepened, the desert seemed to pause, waiting, watching, testing. The trials were far from over, but the girl, abandoned, paralyzed, and underestimated, had begun to awaken. The desert was no longer just a place of punishment. It had become her proving ground. The desert night was quiet, almost unnaturally still. The wind that had howled yesterday now whispered softly through the dunes, carrying the faint scent of hot sand and distant minerals. The girl lay under the shelter, wrapped in the man's tattered blanket, her body exhausted, but her mind alive. She had survived the desert trials, learned to observe, to anticipate, to think. But tonight, something deeper began to stir within her. The man was nearby, sharpening his staff with careful, precise movements. He glanced at her and nodded. "You've done well today," he said softly. "But survival is only the beginning. You are stronger than you realize, and soon you'll understand why." The girl felt a strange warmth spreading through her chest. It was not the fire's heat, it was something inside her, something she had never felt before. Her hands, weak and trembling before, tingled with a subtle energy. Her mind, once crowded with fear and doubt, now felt sharp and clear. She tried to move ever so slightly and noticed her fingers responding, small, careful movements that made her heart race. She realized she was not as helpless as she had believed. The desert had not only tested her body but had awakened her mind, and something more. She could feel it, like a quiet pulse deep in her chest, waiting to grow stronger. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared around her hands. It was subtle, barely visible, like sunlight filtering through the dust. She gasped, frightened but curious. The man noticed immediately, standing and moving closer. "It's happening," he whispered. "I knew it. You were meant for this. The Baron underestimated you. They all did." The girl did not fully understand what was happening, but she could feel power surging through her mind and body. Images flashed before her eyes, strange symbols, alien landscapes, and a vision of herself standing tall, free, and unafraid. She realized that the desert had not just taught her to survive. It had unlocked something dormant inside her. The man guided her gently. "Focus. Don't be afraid. Let it flow through you. Your mind can control more than your body. Think, and it will respond." The girl concentrated, and the glow in her hands grew brighter. Tiny sparks danced in the air, like fireflies in the night. She tried to lift a small stone with her mind. To her amazement, it wobbled, then rose slowly into the air. She could not stop smiling, even though her body still trembled. She was discovering herself, her true potential. "You see?" the man said, his voice filled with awe. "Your father left you here, thinking you were weak, but he could not see what I can. You are more than strength. You are power, intelligence, and will combined." Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the night. A low mechanical hum approached from the dunes. The girl froze. The desert was silent again, but something dangerous was moving closer. She felt fear, old, familiar fear, but it no longer paralyzed her. Her mind raced, analyzing the sound, the rhythm, the pattern. She realized it was not a creature this time. It was something far more threatening, a search drone sent by the Baron to find her. The man read her thoughts. "Good, you feel it. That's the awakening. Now, control it." The girl focused. Her hands glowed brighter, the sparks dancing faster. With a flick of her mind, she disrupted the drone's sensors. It wobbled in the air, sparks flying from its circuits, then crashed into the sand with a dull metallic thud. The man exhaled, impressed but careful. "Not bad for your first trial. The desert taught you resilience. Now it teaches you power." She looked at him, eyes wide but confident. I can do more," she whispered, the words almost trembling with excitement. She realized she had finally begun to surpass her limitations. The desert seemed to acknowledge her transformation. The wind shifted, forming patterns in the sand that mirrored her movements. She felt connected to this harsh, unforgiving world, as if it was a part of her awakening. She was no longer just a paralyzed child abandoned in the heat. She was a mind capable of controlling, understanding, and manipulating her environment. Night deepened and the stars glittered above, as if watching her. The man smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we move beyond survival. You will learn how to fight, how to defend, and how to awaken fully. But tonight, you have claimed the first step of your destiny." The girl closed her eyes, feeling the pulse of power within her. She could feel the desert around her, the patterns of life and death, the rhythm of survival. She was part of it now, and it had become part of her. The fear that had once consumed her was gone, replaced by determination and a growing sense of purpose. Somewhere far away, the Baron's ship glinted in the distance, unaware that the child he had abandoned was no longer weak. The desert had shaped her, the man had guided her, and the spark within had grown into a flame. Soon, she would awaken fully, and nothing, not even her father, would be able to stop her. The desert night was calm again, but the girl knew better. Trials awaited, danger awaited. The awakening had begun, and with it, the first steps toward power, freedom, and a destiny no one had imagined. The fire crackled softly, and the glow in her hands dimmed slightly as she rested, but deep inside, the pulse of energy remained, steady and strong. She was no longer just surviving, she was beginning to rise, and the desert watched, knowing that one day it had forged someone extraordinary. The first light of dawn painted the desert in streaks of gold and crimson. The girl sat beneath the shelter, her glowing hands now dimmed but pulsing faintly with power. Her mind was sharper than ever. She could feel the desert around her, every movement of the wind, every shift in the sand. The man stood nearby, scanning the horizon with sharp, careful eyes. "Something's coming," he said, his voice low but tense. "Not a creature. Something far worse." The girl turned her gaze toward the horizon. In the distance, a massive shadow appeared, moving with purpose. Her heart tightened. The shadow grew, revealing a colossal ship descending from the sky. Its hull was black and jagged, covered in alien symbols that glowed faintly red. The alien Baron had returned. The Baron's eyes, molten and sharp, scanned the desert with lethal precision. He had sent countless drones and scouts to locate his daughter, but now he came himself. His anger was palpable, a dangerous storm contained within a towering figure. For him, the desert was supposed to be a grave, not a place where his daughter would rise. "She's alive," the Baron hissed, his voice cutting through the quiet desert. "And yet, I sense power, a spark I did not expect." The girl felt her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with determination. The desert had awakened her. The trials had taught her resilience. The spark within her was growing into something more, something even her father could not control. The man knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Stay focused. Remember what you've learned. The desert is on your side, and so are your instincts. He may be powerful, but he underestimates you." The Baron's ship landed with a thunderous crash, sending sand and dust swirling into the air. Mechanical limbs extended from the hull, scanning the terrain. The girl watched closely, observing the patterns of the drones that emerged. Her mind worked quickly, analyzing weaknesses, noticing gaps in their patrols. Her hands tingled again, the dormant energy within her stirring to life. She could feel the connection to the desert, the sand, the heat, even the wind. It responded to her focus, bending slightly, shifting under her will. She lifted a small stone with her mind and hurled it toward a drone. Sparks flew as it crashed into the machine, and she smiled faintly. The Baron's eyes narrowed. "Impressive," he muttered, but his voice was laced with anger. "You were supposed to be helpless." He advanced, his towering figure moving with surprising speed. Every step seemed to shake the ground, every motion exuding power and command. His drones formed a protective ring around him, weapons humming with lethal energy. The girl's mind raced. She could not match his strength, not yet, but she could outthink him, outmaneuver him, and use the desert itself as her weapon. The man stood in front of her, staff raised. "Do not hesitate," he warned. "The desert will protect you if you trust it." The Baron raised his hand, sending a pulse of energy toward them. The sand around the girl lifted, swirling into a protective shield as she instinctively directed her powers. The pulse struck the barrier, and sparks flew, but it held. She realized for the first time that she could defend herself, not just survive, but fight. The Baron roared, frustration and fury mixing into a deafening sound. He sent a wave of drones forward, and the girl acted. She lifted sand and rocks with her mind, hurling them at the drones in precise arcs. The desert seemed alive in her control, twisting and moving with her will. Some drones were crushed, others disabled by flying debris. The Baron's eyes widened in disbelief. "So, she truly awakens," he whispered. His own power surged, creating a storm of energy around him. But the girl had learned. She had observed, anticipated, and adapted. Every step he took, she mirrored with the desert's help, using the dunes to shield herself and the man. "You understand? Timate her," the man shouted, moving to flank the Baron's side. "She's not just a child, she's the desert's will." The Baron paused, scanning his daughter. Rage and fear mixed in his molten eyes. "You dare," he hissed. But the girl was ready. She focused every bit of energy she had, sending a controlled pulse that disrupted the Baron's drones and pushed him back. The desert sand whipped around her like a protective storm, creating a barrier that no drone could penetrate. For the first time, the Baron realized the truth. His daughter was no longer helpless. She had grown, learned, and awakened. The desert had not broken her. It had forged her. The girl stood, or rather, rose slightly in her mind, letting the desert carry her strength. Her glowing hands signaled her power, a promise that she would not be abandoned again. She was not just surviving, she was becoming a force the Baron could not contain. The desert wind howled around them, carrying the echo of a warning. Those who abandon or underestimate the determined will face the consequences. The Baron stepped back, his confidence shaken, his pride wounded, and his anger deeper than ever. The man looked at her and nodded. "You've begun to show him, but the real test is yet to come." The girl's pulse raced, her mind alive with focus and determination. She had survived the desert, she had awakened her power, and now she had shown the Baron that weakness was not hers to claim. The desert watched silently, vast and eternal, as the daughter of the Baron prepared to rise fully. The desert had become a battlefield. The first rays of the sun painted red streaks across the dunes, highlighting the jagged shadows of drones and the massive looming figure of the alien Baron. The girl crouched behind a ridge, her hands glowing faintly, her mind sharp and alert. The man stood beside her, staff raised, ready for whatever came. Next, the Baron's drones advanced in precise, synchronized patterns, their sensors glowing red. Each machine moved like a living organism, scanning for weaknesses. But the girl had learned to anticipate movement. She focused her mind, sending pulses of energy into the sand. Tiny rocks lifted, spinning through the air with deadly precision, striking drones and shattering them before they could react. The Baron's voice rang out low and commanding. "You dare defy me? You are nothing without me." The girl's pulse quickened, but she did not falter. She raised her hands higher, feeling the desert respond to her will. Sand twisted into barriers, forming protective walls around her and the man. Drones collided with these walls and crashed in sparks and smoke. She had become one with the desert, controlling it as an extension of herself. "Keep moving," the man shouted. "He will target you directly now." The Baron stepped forward, energy rippling around him like molten fire. His drones created a protective circle, forcing the girl and the man into the open. But she was ready. She sent a wave of sand forward, disrupting the drone's formation and creating an opening. She could see the Baron's surprise. He had underestimated her. The first clash was brutal. Drones collided with the sand walls, sparks flying. The Baron's energy pulses struck the dunes, sending sand flying like lightning through the air. But she did not panic. She focused, letting the desert guide her. Rocks and debris lifted from the ground, striking drones mid-flight, tearing through metal and circuits. The man moved closer to flank the Baron, using his staff to disable smaller drones. "You've learned well," he said, eyes gleaming with pride. "But don't forget, he's dangerous. One mistake and it's over." The Baron roared, frustration boiling into rage. "You think you can defeat me, child? I am your father. I have destroyed worlds." But she did not hesitate. Her hands glowed brighter, energy radiating outward in a subtle storm. Sand lifted, twisting into sharp spikes and whirling walls. Drones fell one by one, their circuits fried or shattered. The Baron's movements were fast, but she anticipated each strike, countering with her desert-powered attacks. Then came a sudden twist. From behind, a group of Baron's elite drones appeared, sleek, fast, and heavily armed. They circled the man, intending to overwhelm him, while the Baron focused on her. The girl's mind raced. She could not leave the man defenseless. She sent a concentrated pulse through the sand, lifting a ridge that knocked the drones off balance. The elite machines crashed into one another, sparks and metal flying in the morning light. The Baron's eyes burned with fury. "Enough!" he shouted, sending a massive energy wave toward them. The ground shook violently, sand flying in every direction. The girl's first instinct was fear, but she did not let it control her. She raised her hands and projected a counterforce, drawing on the desert's energy like never before. The wave met her power, colliding in a blinding explosion of light and heat. For a moment, the desert itself seemed to hold its breath. Sand whirled violently, and the Baron staggered back, surprised. She had done it. She had countered his attack. But she knew this was only the beginning. He would not give up so easily. The man shouted over the chaos, "Now, push forward, show him your strength!" The girl surged forward, letting the desert carry her power. Rocks lifted into the air, spinning like blades. Sand formed barriers and weapons simultaneously, cutting through drones and forcing the Baron to retreat. She moved faster than her body could physically allow, guided by her mind and the desert's rhythm. The Baron unleashed another attack, a storm of energy that ripped across the dunes, but she anticipated it, redirecting part of it with a wave of sand. The collision sent a shock through the desert, throwing both them off balance. But she kept her focus. Her father had underestimated her, and now she would show him the consequences. Finally, the Baron paused, breathing heavily, his pride and rage mixing into a dangerous silence. He realized something terrifying. His daughter had grown beyond his control. She was no longer the weak, paralyzed child he had abandoned. She was strong, intelligent, and powerful. The desert had forged her into something unstoppable. The girl looked at him, hands still glowing, eyes calm but sharp. "I am not weak," she said quietly, her voice carrying across the dunes. "I am more than you ever imagined. I am stronger than you, and I will survive." The Baron's jaw tightened. He raised his hand to strike again, but the girl and the man moved as one, the desert bending to their will. Rocks, sand, and debris struck with precision, forcing him back. For the first time, the Baron hesitated. He had underestimated the human spirit and his own daughter's potential. The desert roared around them, a testament to her power and resilience. The clash had begun, but it was clear. The balance was shifting. She was no longer just surviving. She was fighting and winning. The man nodded beside her. "You've proven it," he said, "but the final battle is coming. Prepare yourself. He will not yield, and neither can you." The Baron stepped back, eyes burning with fury and disbelief. The girl felt the pulse of energy within her growing stronger. The desert had tested her, shaped her, and now it flowed through her. She was ready for what came next, the final confrontation that would decide the fate of not just herself, but the desert and perhaps the galaxy itself. The desert seemed to hum, alive and powerful, as if it recognized its champion. She was no longer just a child. She was a force of nature. And the true battle was about to begin. The desert was silent, but tension crackled in the air like electricity. The Baron's massive figure loomed on the horizon, drones scattered around him, his molten eyes burning with rage. The girl stood beside the man, her hands glowing faintly with energy. The sun blazed overhead, casting sharp shadows across the shifting dunes. This was it, the final confrontation. She could feel the desert beneath her, alive with energy, ready to respond to her will. Every trial, every moment of suffering, every lesson had led to this point. She was no longer the paralyzed child abandoned in the heat. She was a force awakened, and the desert itself seemed to recognize her strength. The Baron raised his hand, sending a wave of energy that tore across the sand like lightning. The man ducked behind a ridge, staff raised, but the girl did not flinch. She raised her hands, letting the energy flow through her, shaping it with her mind. Sand and rock lifted, forming barriers and blades, spinning in intricate patterns that struck drones and deflected the Baron's attack. "You are stronger than I thought," the Baron hissed, his voice a dangerous whisper. "But strength alone will not defeat me." She smiled faintly, eyes calm but piercing. "I am more than strength," she said. "I am focus, will, and mind combined. You left me to die, but I survived, and now I rise." The Baron roared, his energy surging, creating a storm that twisted the sand into a swirling vortex. But she was ready. She lifted her hands higher, letting the desert itself amplify her power. Rocks, sand, and shards of crystal from beneath the dunes spun in the air, forming a protective cage that absorbed the Baron's attack and redirected some of its force back toward him. Sparks flew, and he stumbled, surprised by her control. The man moved to her side, his staff sweeping across the sand, disabling a drone that had slipped past her defenses. "Do not hold back," he shouted. "Show him everything you've learned." The girl's eyes glowed brighter, her pulse racing with focus. She reached into the energy flowing through her and projected a force that rippled across the desert. Drones toppled, sand pillars shot into the sky, and the Baron's vision became obscured by the whirlwind of her power. She could feel the desert answering her call, Every grain of sand, every shifting dune, every hidden ridge became part of her strategy. The Baron's anger reached a boiling point. He unleashed his full power, a massive blast of energy that split the ground and sent a wall of fire and heat toward them. The man braced himself, but the girl raised her hands, letting the desert absorb and channel the attack. The energy met her force in a blinding explosion. For a moment, light and sand merged, creating a storm that seemed to stretch across the entire desert. When the light faded, the Baron was on one knee, panting, his pride shattered. His drones lay scattered, destroyed or disabled. The girl's glow dimmed slightly, but her pulse of energy remained steady. She had not just survived, she had triumphed. "You," the Baron gasped, his molten eyes widening. "You are more than I imagined. How?" She stepped forward, letting the desert carry her movement. "I am who I was meant to be," she said quietly but firmly. "You abandoned me, tried to break me, but I am stronger than you, stronger than anyone you have ever underestimated." The Baron's rage faltered, replaced by a flicker of understanding. He had underestimated her mind, her determination, and the strength born of survival. The desert had shaped her, guided her, and now it flowed through her. She was not just a child, she was a force of nature, unstoppable and wise. The man smiled beside her. "You've done it," he said. "The desert taught you, the trials shaped you, and now you've claimed your true potential. The Baron can never control you." The girl looked around at the dunes, at the wind whispering through the sand, at the quiet power of the desert itself. She felt connected to it, part of it, and it part of her. Every trial, every danger, every moment of fear had led to this awakening. She was no longer weak, no longer or abandoned, no longer underestimated. She was powerful, confident, and free. The Baron rose slowly, his anger tempered by awe. He looked at his daughter, truly seeing her for the first time. "You have surpassed me," he said quietly, a mix of regret and respect in his voice. "Perhaps I was wrong." The girl did not respond with anger or vengeance. She had no need. Her power was not just physical, it was her mind, her will, and her heart combined. She could have destroyed him completely, but she chose something greater, to rise without being consumed by hate. The desert whispered around them, a soft, eternal sound. The dunes shifted gently, as if bowing to the child who had survived, learned, and awakened. She had claimed her true potential. The trials were over, the battle was won, and in the heart of the harshest desert in the galaxy, a girl who had been abandoned became a beacon of power, wisdom, and hope. The man stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done more than survive, he said. "You've shown what it means to rise above. The galaxy has never seen anything like this." The girl looked toward the horizon, feeling the pulse of the desert within her. She had been tested, abandoned, and underestimated, but she had become extraordinary. She was alive, powerful, and ready for whatever the universe could throw at her next. And as the desert wind swept through the dunes, carrying the quiet echo of her triumph, one thing was certain. She had awakened fully. The Baron had returned to witness it. The galaxy had been warned. And she, paralyzed no more, was ready to shape her destiny. The desert had forged her, and now nothing could stop her.